Heyo, I'm Toasted Ideas, and today I want to go over the topic of fatherless homes and how I believe that the issue of fatherless homes are just as rampant or even greater than they used to be, but through a different light. It used to be that fatherless homes was joked about by the common quip of how someone's father didn't return with the milk. And I mean, it's still something joked about because it's still something that happens. But I believe that the issue of fatherless homes goes much deeper than just the thought of the father leaving, be it through because they were a deadbeat or that the mother got pregnant by a random hookup and therefore doesn't know who the father is. And for starters, I would like to note about how the jumping off bridge phenomena is still around. And even on a greater level, the statistic I'm using is from 2022. But I mean, from 2021 to 2022, the numbers increased by about 1,000 and then some. A little bit in between 1,000 to 2,000. Not there quite yet, but basically. And the link for that is down below. But it is across the board higher than previous years, which for the uninitiated, fatherless children are twice as likely to go spelunking with Hades. Which I want to let you know that I didn't find a statistic for 2023. It might be there by the time this video is uploaded, but when I was making the script, I did not have a link for that. Anywho, I might be completely wrong here. Full admission. But I would have to gander that a good portion of that statistic comes from children who grew up without a father. But my personal issue with that is that I feel like it's more than just a child growing up without a father, but rather growing up without a father figure, or even growing up without a cornerstone in their life, growing up without a strong foundation, or perhaps growing up without someone who that child can trust to be there mentally and physically, or even emotionally. Or, in better terms, that child can't trust that their father will be there like a Stonehenge, strong, stable, and unrelenting through whatever weathers him, but rather that the child sees someone weak, broken, and bending beneath the slightest breeze. The father is still there, but is he? And I am a strong believer of having strong role models, and I think that a big issue is that within today's society, we are having fewer and fewer men growing up within a strong household, or at the very least, growing up without a strong male role model. Because once again, we're tackling this from the fatherless part. But rather, people are growing up with YouTubers and the internet alike. And perhaps this is my own experience, but growing up as a child with YouTube, I was served with many childish YouTube videos. I grew up with things like Sunday, playing Feed the Beast, and Crazy Craft, along with videos from other YouTubers such as Popular MMOs, Smosh, Jacksepticeye, and Markiplier, which, although those were great times having a lot of time wasted having fun, I can say that I, as a man, am missing a whole slew of skills that my father has tried teaching me. I can't do electrical stuff, I can't do plumbing, and I can't do a lot of mechanical stuff on the car. Like, sure, I can change a tire and do simple things, but with the years and years that I've spent doing things on vehicles with my father, I can say with confidence that I'm missing a whole skill gap in car mechanics. Now, granted, I'm just built better, and I have a lot of skills that my father doesn't have that I've learned through my own YouTube experience. I'm a pretty self-sufficient person who doesn't deal with crap like being unable. If I'm unable to do something, then I learn how to do that through YouTube or by other means. But the point still stands that growing up, I didn't really have the best of resources being advertised to my spongy skull. And I would even have to wager that that's made a whole lot worse for children by today's YouTube standards. As we have children growing up with OF models, scammers, illegitimate people, and just an overall group of bad YouTubers and Twitch streamers alike. We have people who are trying to sell a product in the eyes of children and easily persuaded teenagers. And where are the parents of today's generation? Typically found handing their child an iPad or iPhone to have them preoccupied. We're growing up with a generation that learns from a screen more than they learn from their neglectful parents, which I don't necessarily blame the parents, as they've been brought up into a world that requires their occupancy at a job so that their family stays afloat in this economic times. Though from that negligent action, they're growing up a child that just takes in the information that they see on the internet as fact, as they don't exactly have any opposing ideas that exist around them, only for them to then find out as they grow up that their knowledge is a complete farce. And I mean, just think of YouTube. What does YouTube do? It feeds you what you watch. If you watch a lot of if you watch one specific type of content, YouTube isn't going to source you a different kind of content because that's not what you're into. You're into that kind of content, so they're not going to show you an opposing type of content because that's not what they care about. They care about you being on the platform, watching more ads, watching that YouTuber, and so on and so forth, because that is better for ad revenue. But aside from that, so it's not necessarily about having fatherless children, but I believe that it's an overall parentless experience that people are growing up with. We have a lot more women who have taken the position of the man of the house for multiple reasons, and have a lot more men who have taken the positions of the women in the house, which, while I'm not against those people making those decisions in the relationship, I just wonder about how the child's experience growing up has been affected by that. And furthermore, I wonder about how their later life is going to go, as now they have a lot of skills that, for the mass majority, doesn't help them in the quest for a partner. Take myself, even. I cook, I clean, I can do laundry, and I don't have the prior masculine skills that were once needed in finding a wife. So that, I can figure, has already set myself to have a limit as to who I would even be able to date, as a good majority of women like men or like having a man being able to do the masculine jobs of mechanics, electrical, carpentry, plumbing, and etc. And then on top of those skills, males are also growing up with the ever-rising standards for the amount that they must be making in order to date someone, or some people, which, granted, that for the most part is just dumb people on the internet making those standards, but at the same time, it was the internet that taught that child and teenager. And I mean, just think back to the time when kids growing up with more and more iPhone apps. Does anyone remember those mass purchases made through kids gaining access to their parents' credit card? If those parents were actually watching their child and supervising them, then those same children shouldn't have grown up with the earliest memories being about stealing money. And not just a small amount, but instead a rather large or massive amount in such a short time. I would even put a wager in that those same kids are growing up to be future thieves. Is that a stretch? Perhaps. But that's how things happen. It starts small and grows into something much larger. How do you think those OF models became OF models? If I were to guess, it would be through the lack of parents being around. And through that, that same child then growing up with the ever-growing popularity and wealth of other women being on OF, heck, that's how I, for the most part, am here. I grew up watching YouTubers make lots of money, gain popularity, and that's why I'm here. I watched them do that, and I was like, oh wow, you know what? I could do that. Now, granted, that's not mainly what I'm doing here anymore, but the point still stands. Like, I'm not here just for money. One of the purposes I'm still here is because I want to try and make change, perhaps, if I can, or at least have ideas. You know, talk about ideas, have thoughts go through your brain, or to allow people to start critically thinking about life. But those are still two things that attracted me to do this. And I mean, that's also how pop culture had changed the scenery for people growing up through that age. We're now filled with a whole sector of teenagers who now think that wearing a balaclava makes them dangerous and unstoppable. It's all a giant domino effect. Parents aren't around, child then grows up with the same culture of, or some culture of internet, and then grow up with the dreams to become those same people from that culture. People used to grow up with the dreams of finding that one partner to then have children with that person and a fulfilling life following that. But that's just simply not the current life that people are growing up in. What do we see on the internet? Or just in pop culture in general? Drugs, hookups, mistakes, and a whole sector of single people, and once again, an ever-growing parentless generation to then continue that cycle. There is a perfect song that echoes this called Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin, which is about a child becoming like their father, unavailable, which, go figure, happens to be what is seen by today's generation. A bunch of people growing up to become future unavailable parents, who then do drugs, hookups, create mistakes, and continue on with the cycle of being single. Am I charitable on my thoughts about this? No. In fact, I think that this is just going to become worse and worse. But for those who grow up with non-existent parents, because people who grow up with parents who are actually there, I think that'll be better overall. But, I mean, I can't see that exactly. Anywho, I think that I've covered my thoughts on this pretty thoroughly. If you agreed or disagreed, then please find yourself down below in the comments alongside that subscribe button that I ask you to consider hitting to become a fellow bread bag. And also, while you're down there, hit that like button so that this video can perhaps be seen by other people who may not have seen this video, had you not done that, so that they themselves can consider joining the bread box. And also, so that I know that you enjoyed listening to this idea. You know, hitting that like button does a few things for me. But without further ado, I hope to see you in the next video. But until then, have a good one.